Hey, welcome back everybody. This is episode 33. So we are going long. I've had a few days break from the last video. Uh, I've been digesting a lot. I had my first successful Sabbath this Sunday, which was 2 days ago now. I thought it went really well. It was a very blessed day. Read a lot of the Bible. I listened to some sermons. I just kind of hung out with my mother. We discussed the Bible, our readings, kind of interpreted it together. And yeah, it was just a really great day. So Sabbath is definitely something I'm trying to work on. Another thing I've been trying to work on, and this kind of ties in with the Sabbath thing, is reading the Ten Commandments every day, or not necessarily reading, but reviewing them. So just thinking through, going through the list of them. And then, I mean, one of those commandments is observe the Sabbath, right? Like the Sabbath is very important. So those two kind of went hand in hand with me. The reason I've been going through the commandments is to just remind myself of what God expects of us, the things that are kind of bottom line for Him. And I mean, the Ten Commandments I would put as bottom line type things for God. So I review them and then I ask myself, am I violating this? So for instance, first one's just, I understand He is the only God and there are no other, right? And just, yeah, put God first. So I kind of think about that, and then I look at my life for that day, the day before, whatever, and say, did I violate this? No. And then I just keep going down the list, right? And for me, there's certain ones that I struggle with more than other ones. So before I was telling all of you, like, one of the commandments is don't bear false witness, right? So basically, don't lie, don't deceive people is how I would take that. And I told you that that was definitely a thing for me, but actually that one, once I started making the conscious effort not to do it, it's actually, I don't really struggle with it. I think lying and deceit for me was something I was kind of conditioned to in my childhood because of just my upbringing, like just the environment that I grew up in, and it just kind of was my protection. But now as an adult, I don't actually think lying is a part of my base character at all. So it wasn't hard once I started to focus on it to kind of kick that habit. The rest of the ones, not stealing, that one I don't struggle with at all. I don't really struggle with any of the to do with God type stuff, like using His name incorrectly, that type thing. But the ones that I would say are more difficult for me are sexual immorality. So just anything to do with sex. I have a pretty strong sex drive, and it's hard for me to control it sometimes. And I really need to focus on that, and that's something a real test. And the difference between that and lying, and I kind of want to make this distinction in this video. What I mean by that, everybody struggles with one, or some of them are like built into your base character, your base motivation, and they're much harder. So there's some sins that are conditioned, and there's some sins that I feel are a base part of who you are. And going through the commandments is helping me because it's making me more aware of when I'm violating or when I'm getting close to violating. Another sin that with me is honor thy parents. With my mother, it's very easy. I am very close with my mother. I'm very grateful to her. My father, it's harder. I'm still very grateful to my father, and especially as I've got older, I am grateful. He's just my father's Japanese. He is Japanese. Culturally, I'm not. I'm an American culturally, right? And if anybody's ever interacted with different cultures, and especially Asian cultures and American cultures, it's very different how like father sons interact with each other. So I think I'm doing it right, and I want to do it right because I do love my father. But at the same time, honor is kind of vague, and I have sometimes I think, am I doing it or not? But in general, I think I am doing it, and kind of the Holy Spirit in me tells me like, hey, Alex, you're doing a good job with honoring your parents. The other one that is a base nature struggle. So these are my big two. is the sexual immorality and the coveting the last commandment, which is don't covet anything of your neighbors. But I take that to mean just basically like anybody in general. Don't be covetous. Don't look at somebody else and want what they have. And this one to me is hard because once again, it's like my base reaction. It's not something my brain doesn't process and then I say, oh, I'm covetous. It's like it's just the instinct. It's like if you get burnt, your hand just moves away really quickly. That's how I feel about it. And my covetousness is not very strong and it's easy for me to override. So as soon as I feel it, so for instance, let's say I'm not too materialistic, so like cars and that type of stuff have never got me. Clothes never really got me, anything like that. But for me, the covetousness is more, I don't know, happiness, I would say. Like if I look at, okay, for instance, if I look at somebody and they just have like this beautiful, wonderful family and they all love each other and, treat each other kindly and all this stuff, my base is, oh, I want that, right? Like, oh, I want that. And I think traditionally I've thought to myself, oh, I want that. The covetousness was that I'd look at that and I'd be like, oh, I want what they have. But now I think, and this part I still am thinking about, and you can probably tell, is I think it's that base feeling is always going to be there for me. It's just the way that I consciously interpret it needs to change, and I think that I think changed quite well. Which is, it's like, okay, I feel this, and instead of wanting what they have and like instead of wanting what they have, I am trying to turn it into, wow, I respect that. Like I see that you are blessed and that's a great example of how to live, and I respect the effort that they put into it. I respect and feel the blessing that God is giving them, and it's more of something that's inspiration for me to work on myself. It's more like, oh, look, that thing exists out there, and that's something so great, and those people are very blessed. And if I keep working hard and if I keep listening to God and I keep on the right path, then one day God will give me that blessing also. So I think those are very different ways of looking at it. Hopefully I'm explaining that well. So that one, hopefully in everything I just explained, like hopefully I'm explaining how they all differ from me. So lying, once again, just to review, lying I feel was conditioned. It's not a part of my base character, so it's not really hard to override. Covetousness is something that is a base nature thing, but it's not that hard for me to change my reaction, change my actually, you know what? Change my response to the feeling. So I feel that feeling of, oh my gosh, look at that amazing thing, and I just need to change it. How I process that into something of like admiration, kind of recognizing and everything, and then as a goal, something I can work towards. Sexual immorality is by far the hardest one for me because once again, the just base is the feeling, right? Like if I see an attractive woman, I'm watching, like TV has become something seriously hard for me. Like I never thought anything of what I was watching on Netflix or TV or any of that stuff, right? But now God's, I'm broing out with God more, and I'm thinking about the commandments more, and sexual immorality especially. And then I'm watching TV, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's hard. Like, a sex scene. You see a scene where the woman's in a little bikini. You see like these different things. I'm like, oh, and then my mind starts to kind of go down the path it shouldn't be going down, right? I'm married, so if I have sexual interactions with another woman, it's adultery, which is the sin, right? And so to me, if you thinking about something is the gateway. Thinking about it leads to you kind of thinking about it 1 minute a day turns into 10 minutes a day, into 30 minutes a day, and then your actions start to follow your thoughts. So then you start to think about it, then all of a sudden you find yourself flirting with other women, and then flirting escalates, and anyways, I mean, that's the trap for me. And This one I don't know how to deal with yet. It's something I'm struggling with, and I guess that's why I want to share this today. Is I guess that's why this is coming out in this video. Is yeah, it's just very difficult, and I don't have a good way to deal with it like I have to deal with the other sins. I feel like the best thing I can do is just shut down the thought. Um, Something that kind of thought of when I was younger. My best friend, his cousin was a parole officer, right? And his one day we were talking about him being a parole officer, and he was actually explaining. He was like, my I have my parolees are all sex offenders, right? And he was talking about the sex offenders, and specifically he got to the pedophiles, right? So not all of his parole people were, but a section of his parolees were pedophiles. And we were talking about that, and he was explaining that part of their parole is they literally have to take a lie detector, and they will ask them, like, have you thought about children in a sexual manner? And he was explaining, like, and to me at the time I was like damn, like, that is, I mean, if I think of a lie detector, it's like, oh, I thought about this. To me at the time, the having a thought and acting on it were very, very different things. So to me that was like so extreme. It's like, oh my gosh, this person can go back to jail just for literally thinking something, even if it's just, I mean, 2-second thought. And now, as I've got older, and as I've started to deal with myself, it that makes so much more sense to me, because it's like you have to just shut down the thought. And I think that interaction, which was, I don't know, 15, probably more than 15 years ago for me now, and I never really thought about it that much. It just popped into my head more recently, since I've been kind of interacting with God. And I really think that's an interaction God gave me to understand how to deal with things, with deal with the commandments that are hard for you. The ones that are truly your base, you need to just simply shut down. Like, don't even allow yourself to go down the path. Don't open the doorway. So for me, I think that's why it's hard. Is I guess if I think about it now, I do know the answer. I do know the solution. It's just very difficult, because shutting down your base requires a lot of things. Like for me, I'm actually, honestly, I might need to stop watching anything that's going to trigger me. So like, I need to stay away from shows that are going to be showing too much skin, if they're going to be like too much sex scenes, that type of stuff, because if I see it, my brain starts going that way, and it's hard to just shut it down, right? So I think that's very difficult, because a lot of our society has a lot of sex everywhere, right? Sex sells. It's everywhere in our society. So for me, I think that's just going to be a very difficult one, but I definitely need to work on it. And yeah, honestly, making this video has helped me think about it more. And yeah, so I think I will leave it there for today. I hope you all took something away from this. As always, I want to interact. So, it doesn't have to be in the YouTube comments, by the way. Like, some people message me on Discord, and we talk about it on Discord or whatever. So I love interacting on any level. It doesn't have to be like public on YouTube. I know everybody's not like me. So yeah, but definitely reach out to me if you have something you want to talk about, whether it's to help me or if it's something you want to ask me or anything like that. Just reach out to me. But as always, love you all, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.